Hello, and welcome to what is likely going to be a much shorter episode of After Shadow Space, or the .5 episodes as I'm now calling them. Which I don't think I don't remember if I acknowledged this in the last one or not, but I've retroactively gone back and labeled all of the After Shadow Spaces as being like episode number .5 at the suggestion of the viewer Saddlebag, which I think was a very, very good idea on their part, hence why I did it. Which, you know, in that vein, if any of you have any suggestions for anything for the channel, including things you think could be cool for the setting of Shadow Space, shoot them down below. In fact, I'm kind of thinking I might, let me know what you all think, but I'm tempted to create a chat in the Discord where people can just submit character concepts, and I'll throw them in the setting as random NPCs for the players to interact with. I think that could be a fun concept. Since the setting is, Shadow Space in and of itself in its early iteration was designed to be, as I would put it, OC friendly. Gene splicing allows you to put furries in if you want them. Cybernetics allows you to have all sorts of weird robotic characters. And the little inkling we saw of Shadow Touch even allows for the existence of magical stuff in the setting. Basically, theoretically, any fictional character could be put into the world of Shadow Space if put through the filter correctly. But anyway, tangent aside, yeah, after Shadow Space, after the episode Gas Mask, which, oh, that was a very good one. The Broken Triangle arc that we find ourselves in, when we started off Shadow Space, it was really sort of on the whim. I was like, hey, you guys want to record and stream this? And they were like, yeah, and we just sort of did it, and it was just sort of whatever, you know, we had already done a couple sessions off stream, then we did a couple sessions on stream, and everything before this was just sort of caution to the wind. Broken Triangle is me putting in a much more concerted effort to make it entertaining for the viewers now, and like this arc is planned to be more entertaining for all of you, as well as designed to be a open world narrative rather than the dungeon crawl that everything previous to this was. And that kind of showed today, where there was a whole bunch of little plot lines of what the players could do dropped in front of them, with them getting a whole bunch of different things they could do. Words. Words, I can speak them. But yeah, so this whole episode was the start of that. And the Gas Mask character, I think, is a very fun one. I think that's going to be the bulk of what I talk about here, because I don't think there's a lot I can talk about lore. Well, there's a little I can talk about lore-wise before I get to that. The city of Athens that we're in the setting. Athens itself was founded in the set universe. It is built on the city, the planet Sharian, and it is the largest, not the first, but the largest settlement on the planet, and was built by the Trojan Firearms Corporation. At the center of the city, something that will become clear is the more toward the center you get, the more oriented to the firearms company it becomes, where a lot of production facilities are there, and the arena in the center itself was built to help promote their technology, and like their military advancements and all of that. But you know, that's just that's that little fun thing separate. But yeah, those, I can use words. The whole city was built, has like a big dome, with the plans being for it to grow, with them just like initially filling it with a bunch of buildings and slowly taking down and replacing old buildings, and now even building up the sides of the dome. So the things on the dome walls and even a little bit towards the ceiling are the more recently constructed buildings and the more cheaper constructed buildings, while the more toward the center of the dome you get and toward the arena, the older but more well-upkept the buildings are. But yeah. So like Athens is a whole setting with a bunch of planning behind it, and I think is going to be very fun. I mentioned it beforehand, but the Broken Triangle arc as a whole, this setting, this open world setting, isn't initially from Shadow Space, but from a Fallout campaign I had run long ago, and that Fallout campaign was set in the Texas region. But this is a setting that I've come back to time and time again, moving it into fantasy worlds, into apocalypse worlds, and now into Shadow Space. Sort of reconfiguring elements of the world and the setting to better fit different campaigns. And in the future, I would love to even take the Broken Triangle setting and turn it into its own full video game, whether it's part of the Shadow Space world or not. It's a setting and world that I've put a lot of effort into, and is my most gone back to location in TTRPGs, you know? Athens itself is just one point of the triangle. That's something that we will learn with time. But in and of itself, you could probably make an entire game out of just the content I have planned that the players could encounter in the city. But yeah, moving on from that and talking about the gas mask guy. So, the gas mask guy, as was sort of touched on and talked about in the session, is a very, fun character, to say the least. Shadow Space, as I had mentioned previously, this campaign is an old one, or this setting is an old one that I've done with friends in the past. And Doodlezar's character, Hopper, originates from the original Shadow Space campaign I ran, all way back years ago. Then their character's plotline never got any resolution because the campaign ended due to scheduling issues, stuff like that. And there was I'd even reached out to the members of that original campaign to see if they were interested in joining this, and, Doodle was the only one who got back about it. But the Shadow Space setting, well, I mean, actually one other player has kind of gotten back to me, but we haven't settled on them rejoining yet or not. But yeah, Hopper's character has a whole fleshed out backstory, and in that original campaign, the Pulsar criminal syndicate was created to be a main villain for another player, which I'll talk about this player a little bit. This player's character, they were Seth the Splicer. And Seth had a twin brother, and the two of them grew up on a small planet way out at the edge, the fringes of space at the time. And it was sort of a farming colony situation. There were some cities, and it was sort of a breadbasket region. Because of that, life was very boring, and that led to the two brothers getting hooked on drugs that were dealt by the Pulsars. And eventually, one of the two died, and the surviving brother, Seth, filled with rage, got himself spliced into basically being an incredible killing machine, with his intent being to go kill the people who he blamed for his brother's death, and then potentially himself. So he replaced his fingers with big-ass claws, he gave himself razor-sharp teeth, heightened adrenaline, heightened senses and strength and agility, and he went and he massacred all of the entire local branch of the Pulsars gang, only to realize that it was just the tip of the iceberg, and his main character motivation was to bring down this criminal organization. And that ended up leading to the Pulsars becoming the primary villain group of the campaign, as the other players didn't really have particular groups they had a vendetta against that they were going after, and they agreed to help Seth with his goals. And this led to all of the players becoming enemies of the Pulsars, and at a certain point, I ended up introducing, this engineering, scientist figure to the Pulsars, who was sort of their tech guy and would help them deconstruct unusual technology and help them understand it and replicate it. And when he figured out that Hopper was an android, he was like, ooh, I want to take that shit apart. I want to see what's in there. Androids are top tier fucking legal. Which, to explain why, the Trade Council has agreed that androids are illegal because having robots that look and act too much like a human, it leads to people questioning the place of robots in society as a slave race. And they don't want to lose their robotic slave race. So androids are all out illegal, and you can't have humanoid looking robots, at least not you need to make them blatantly robotic, more or less, The other robot the players met, hang on, let me look at my notes, Where is it? Where is it? Norman's robot, Ita. She is about as human as you could expect a robot to look legally. But so, what ended up happening is the Pulsars, there was no main reoccurring Pulsar for most of the campaign for a long time. It was just the disambiguous criminal organization, the Pulsars, were the reoccurring villains. But when Gas Mask Guy, who was not even named, was just a generic villain, showed up and got away, you know, showed up, the players dealt with them and then ran away, but didn't kill him, I sort of had him come back later on. And then again, and then again, and again. And he unintentionally became this reoccurring villain without any real planning of that ending up being the case. And it lets this great dynamic moment of the players becoming attached to a villain. And unnamed, literally unnamed faceless villain. He's just skin-tight black suit, gas mask, cloak. And really, the only reason he looked like that at the time was because they were in a location filled with toxic fumes. But that just became the sticking point of his appearance. These big green goggles, gas mask, World War I style gas mask, and pack on his back. He created this uncomfortable vibe of an appearance, and having him reappear with all this continually escalating technology and reoccurrence made him a sticking point for the players, and me as well, in that campaign. And so I carried that on into this one, you know? Into this campaign. And man, I was not ready. In that encounter, that fight in the warehouse was really just supposed to be the players bumping into him, and then him grabbing the money and running away once the fighting broke out. But the players played really fucking smart and stopped that from happening. And it's at this point that I'd like to quickly say, I'm sorry to my players, who, if you're watching this, because I know a couple of you, I know at least Tristan watches these After Shadow Space episodes. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave this episode and stop listening if you're one of the players, because I'm about to talk about the viewer only section. So Tristan, I know you're watching this. I appreciate you, but go away. But okay, I think I've given it a long enough chunk for them to leave, and if you listen to this, I will be very disappointed in you. But yeah, the words, that little, I'm gonna call it post-credits scene we had of him surviving. So that was a thing I had mentally teased the idea of doing all the way back in the old campaign, but never really had a chance to do and didn't do until now. The idea of having him having illegal clones of himself, which I think is a very fun idea. So to fill in a little bit of background lore on how the hell he even did that in the first place, he has, so I mentioned, I sort of dropped earlier in that episode that the ship has a connection to its robot body. They're connected via, basically, both the spaceship and the robot of Ita have a perpetual little wormhole thing held open inside them, a quantumly sized wormhole through which they can send radio signals between the two bodies to keep them connected. Gas Mask Guy has a cybernetic implant in the base of his brain doing that with his thoughts to the facility. Now, when the EMP blast went off, that actually turned that off. And then when he died, that killed him. But after too much time of not receiving a new signal from the brain, the facility that Gas Mask Guy had activated an automated system to take the last data packet of his memories it had just before the EMP blast went off, and dump that into a new body, and then revive him. So he's gonna come back, and no matter how many times the players kill him, until they learn that that's how he works and how to take him out, he's gonna keep coming back. They need to figure out where that facility is, how that facility works. They need to destroy that facility. And here's the fun thing is, like, Gas Mask Guy isn't even the top of the Pulsars. He's just a member. To talk a little bit more about the Pulsar organization as a whole, the Pulsar organization is a anti-splicer criminal organization. They hate splicers. They believe the next step in human evolution is cybernetic enhancement, primarily. They don't like the idea of genetic modification and all of that. They want cybernetic enhancements, and they like technology and robots. They're sort of these pseudo-techno-fetishist drug dealers who deal in illegal narcotics and advanced technology. I say illegal narcotics in air quotes. There's not really such a thing as illegal narcotics. There's just narcotics that certain corporations don't like their employees using. And we might even see some of those narcotics popping up here and there as the series goes. Even though Barbara's the only person who could feasibly who could feasibly take it. But yeah, it's they're very much a cut out of that classic Italian mob vibe. You know, they wear bright blue zoot suits with deep blue stripes. They wear blue ties and white shirts, and they have blue fedoras, and they have the little pin of the Pulsar star. They're classic mafioso guys. And the ones the players are fighting in this last session were a goon class enemy, as I put it in my system, meaning 1 damage is enough to kill a goon. You do 1 damage to them and they're dead, unless you are explicitly doing a non-killing blow. Generally what I'll do in a fight is I will take one big baddie, Gas Mask Guy, and surround him in a bunch of goons. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to talk about this episode. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them below, and I'll try and answer them in a future episode of After Shadow Space. And I hope you all look forward to the continuation of the Broken Triangle arc of Shadow Space. I hope you all like the new logo. I spent a good bit of fucking time getting that looking really nice, I think. Or trying to get that looking really nice. Yeah, end cards appearing in a moment. Love all of you very much, and see all you in 2 weeks for more of this. Ta-ta!